Do you view fitness as a luxury or a responsibility?
No, I mean, the single greatest responsibility I think as a dad is to maintain my health and fitness for the reasons we've talked about. I just think that at the bottom of the pyramid, if compassion, love, physical capability, like name all these things you want to have, all these things you want to be able to do as a dad, at the framework of it, I think is your own physical and mental health. And I think physical health manages mental health. Like it plays a big part. I'm not saying that you can't be physically, here's what I'll say. If you're physically fit, I imagine your likelihood of being mentally fit are probably in a better scenario than if you're physically unfit. I think your likelihood of being mentally fit is more difficult. It's more difficult to be clear of mind, to feel self-confidence, to feel all the things that we need to do to show up for our families when you're not physically active, in my opinion.
As parents, as fathers, that is a leadership role. We are leading our kids, we are leading our families. And one of the responsibilities as a leader is to let our team, let our family, let people know what is important, what they should be working on, what is priority. Because if we don't let people know as leaders what is priority, what they should be focused on, what they should be learning about, what they should be reading, what they should be consuming, they will naturally gravitate towards the easiest thing. And sometimes the easiest thing is just sitting there, watching, consuming, being distracted by content that they can't actively shift or change or influence. So as leaders, it's our responsibility to let our team, let our family know, here's what we need to prioritize. Here's what we need to focus on. It's not gonna be the easiest thing, but it's the thing or things that actually move the needle in our lives.
Yeah. I mean, something I think about on a regular basis, and sometimes it's in the sauna, sometimes it's at night, sometimes it's just at some point. It's like, how am I doing? How are we doing? And I think checking in on yourself is really important. Having a community of like-minded men around you to check in with, I think is really important. And then obviously having good communication with your wife, I think is really important. So I think if you could do those three things, you're off to a really good start. If you're sitting there listening to the podcast and you don't have a network of men that you have any conversations with at all, other than basic sports, I think it's important to start creating a community of that. And I've been blessed in my life to have that through CrossFit, then to get that through jiu-jitsu, and to now get that through our weekly men's club workout that we do in a parking lot, where you could start having conversations with other guys and learning from them and leveling up. And I think that we've missed that as a society as things have evolved over the years. I also think we're missing out on, spending, really dedicated time with our spouse and having good conversations. I think that's really important. And then finally, I think it's just these daily check-ins. It's like, dude, because you know when you're not doing a great job. You have a general idea, I think, if you messed up, and apologizing to the children, apologizing to your wife, and level setting, I think is really important. But if you don't have that self-perspective, it's tough. I'm not perfect, I made a ton of mistakes, but I try and reflect on it so I could try and get better the next day. I graduated from college and opened a gym the same month. I also won the CrossFit Games that same month. And so at that point, it kind of stirred this whole thing where we didn't have kids. I was in the gym all day, every day. It was all good because she had her thing, I had my thing, all was good, right? But then we had kids. And at that point, our business was really growing. So we opened up maybe 20, 30 locations across Asia with Western Digital as corporate accounts. And then I was competing in CrossFit still, doing that. And then I had a new family. And that is, I'd say, where the wedge was starting to kind of create, where I was getting pulled in a variety of different directions, and it was hard for me to prioritize what really needed to be prioritized, which was that relationship, right? Because if that relationship's on point, everything else can fall into place from there.
What did you stop doing during that time? Because I'm assuming There's all these distractions in your life,
Yep.
right? You're working on all these different things. And in order to like really hyper focus on something, that being the relationship, my first thought is, okay, there's certain things I have to say no to and turn off.
So I didn't necessarily need to turn anything off other than my brain when we were together. You know what I mean? Like, so at that point, I just wasn't structuring my day well enough where I was, having dinner with her and my daughter, but thinking about walking on my hands to the CrossFit Games, or thinking about the, conference call I had later on that night with Asia. And what I needed to do a better job of is that when I was there and I appropriately managed my time so I could spend more time, but then also being present in that time. And I think that that's something that fitness can really teach us, is that if you're not working out and you're a guy listening to this right now, like tomorrow, like the single greatest variable I think people can add into their life to fix literally everything else is fitness. Like, because it just creates this like ecosystem where you show up better mentally, you show up better physically, you feel more self-confident. There's so many things that transfer from that. So I try to take the mentality that I took to my workouts, which was being very present, very focused, and I tried to embody that with my family. And I ended up calling it the amrap mentality. I was going for as many reps as I could, being present on my wife, being present on my daughter at the time.
Okay, so Jason and I just wrapped up some back strength training, and now we're moving into a high rocks circuit. So this is gonna be a partner workout. It is 6 rounds. And within each round, there's a functional movement and there's a 1K run. So while one person is doing a 1K run, the other person is doing the respective functional movement. For example, I'll start out with a 1K run. Jason will start out with farmer's carry. He'll do farmer's carry until I'm done with that 1K run. Then we'll switch. And then I will go to farmer's carry. He will go into the 1K run. When he finishes the 1K run, then I will hop on and he will start ski. And he will ski the entire time that I am running. So we have farmer's carry, ski erg, row, wall balls, bike erg, sled push. These are the 6 functional movements. Should be about a 50-ish minute workout, and it's gonna be a good one. 6K of running total. A lot of people, a lot of men, a lot of boys find fitness when they're younger.
Yeah.
And you find the gym, you start eating healthier, you prioritize protein, you start building some muscle, you get into supplements, you build this confidence. You'll see a lot of high schoolers, college students going to the gym on a regular basis. But then as they start getting older, and I've seen it with the cohort of people that I grew up with and graduated college, life gets busier.
Mm-hmm.
You have more distractions. You have a full-time job, you get married, you have kids. And it seems like fitness is one of the first things to go out the window. It's never football games on the weekends, or it's never, the barbecue parties. It's never the easy things they get rid of. It's the hard things they get rid of. And fitness seems to always be that one. And I've had this conversation a million times with a bunch of different people, where you start talking and they tell you about, when they were in high school or they were in college and the sports they played and the miles they ran, the weights they lifted. And then they go, yeah, but like, I just don't have time for that anymore.
Oh yeah, always.
And I look at them like, I got time. They're like, well, you work out 5 hours a day. No, I don't. I wake up at 4:30 a.m. I go run my miles. And then after work, I lift my weights. 2 hours a day, which is a lot for some people. You don't need 2 hours.
No.
But if it matters to you, you will make time. But it seems like the first thing that people just forget about especially guys and men, which is a responsibility and obligation, is the ability to perform in our fitness. When your kids started growing up, was it hard to deprioritize your fitness and your training that might have used to be prioritized over your family to then shift that to be family first, then fitness? Was that a tough transition?
Yeah, I mean, that was a tough transition. I think what ended up happening is I started to recognize, like, started creating this, like, gotta go, where I just show up to the gym, my training partners be like, dude, I gotta go. And I just gotta go. Like, we gotta get right into it. And I think that this goes back to what we were talking about with men thinking they don't have enough time. At this point, what I get more than anything is guys saying, hey, I'm gonna show up for your men's club workout. And I just like, okay, good, dude. Or like, I'll be at a party, I'll be like, hey man, like I'm ready to get after it. I'm like, dude, cool, awesome. Like, I'm no longer following up with people. I send out a weekly email and text telling people where I'm gonna be at and what we're gonna do on the weekend. And if they show up, they show up. But I think this idea that, like, guys, they want to work out. They want to do it. They really do. But they can't get past, like, that first initial hurdle. And what I would tell people is, like, consolidate your time, give yourself 30 minutes, give yourself an hour. And if you don't have that in your schedule, like, start prioritizing differently. And that's what I had to do when I started having a child. Prioritize different. 2 children, prioritize different. And take my training block that I knew I needed and just wake up earlier or consolidate down from a 90-minute session midday to an hour session because 30 minutes of it was me on my phone, right? Those were the things that I had to make changes on, not so much like, because I still wanted to win the CrossFit Games. So I wouldn't reduce my training. I would just reduce the downtime. You know what I mean? And I think for any guy listening who says, hey, I don't have time to train, it's like, dude, you do. Like, I keep a sandbag in the back of my truck and it's 80 pounds. And anytime I'm out of practice, I'll back squat with it, or I'll run on the track during practices. And people say, well, then you're not watching the whole practice. Like, dude, for the first 45 minutes of practice, they're warming up, they're doing drills anyways. I could get in 45 minutes for myself that is only gonna help me show up better for the rest of the family for the rest of that day. And I think that once we start reframing it, that people do have time and that you don't need to put on a pedestal and that something is more than nothing, I think that's the key.
I had this dream for, say my daughter's 15 years old and say my son is 13 years old and I'm doing like a 100-mile race.
Yeah.
In some crazy technical terrain environment up in the mountains. And I come into checkpoint at the 80-mile mark and I'm just zombie mode.
Yes.
Everything hurts. My ankles are bleeding. I fell at some point. There's dried blood on my knee and I'm just sucking. I want my kids to see me as I come into that checkpoint. I sit down in a chair and my eyes are just doing the 1,000-yard stare, preparing to go embark on the next 20 miles to the finish line. I want them to witness that and then watch me get out of the chair and go run another 20 miles and cross the finish line. And I've been thinking about this for the last couple of months, and I want them to see me endure pain and be resilient and struggle and succeed. And not just through that race, but the months leading up to that in preparation. And that's where I was from 4 a.m. to 6 a.m. every morning before they woke up, and I was logging the miles and I was putting in the work and during the process, and seeing how that fitness is a family value and the importance of it, not just for the ability to perform, but for the standard it sets for my family, our leadership, our environment, our community. That's like a dream of mine that
It's going to happen.
it's going to happen maybe a decade away, but like I want them to see that.
No, it's going to happen. They're going to be holding up a T-shirt and a flag. They're going to be fired up for you. Because it's going to happen. Like it's going to happen. And I think the key term that I pick it up on what you just said is endure, right? Life is going to be hard. It is, and it's different for everybody. And some people like are blessed in many ways, but everybody, doesn't matter who you are, has to overcome some level of adversity in some way, shape, or form. And I think that it's not, if, things will come up, it's just when. And I think that the more that we can train our children and ourselves to endure, to do hard things, the more capable they'll be, in my opinion, when those hard things actually come across their path.
Finished in exactly 50 minutes there. That was a great workout. That was good. High rock sim, partial high rock sim. How you like it?
My legs got really heavy. How you doing? It's just a good example, right? We talk about training to protect and provide, and one area I think I'm weak at is that kind of longer, slower distance, but then also adding in some weights. Dude, your legs just feel heavy. So like if I had to carry an object for a really long period of time, that's a good example. Maybe I have a deficiency there. So I gotta keep training that. My runs were relatively slow and I couldn't feel like I could speed them up, man. I was trying. Just got hard. It took me a while to recover from the previous movement.
Yeah.
And then I was able to drop my time down a little bit.
I mean, that's what I love about High Rocks is it is literally compromised running. It is a running event that you continue to get more compromised the longer the event goes on. And with running, like 1K it's kind of like that sweet spot distance where it's not short enough to sprint, but you got to pace yourself pretty well.
Dude, it's a big difference between 800 meters.
Yeah. It is.
Mentally, because for me, there's times, especially in that assault runner, where I saw that thing creep up to the 5-minute range for a 1K. And it's just demoralizing. Like 5 minutes is a long time to kind of like mentally push yourself. You got to settle into a pace, and I just couldn't. That was hard. But here's the thing about it, right? People talk about not having time as men. It's like, dude, we just got done bodybuilding and a really hard workout in 90 minutes. Now, did you have to do all that? No. You could reduce that down even in a half of what we just did and still get a phenomenal stimulus.
I mean, 90 minutes, that was high volume and high intensity.
Dude, that was hella high volume.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna go jump on a plane right now. Dude, I'm 39, how old are you?
34.
34, right? We both got kids, we both got businesses. Granted, our businesses are in the fitness space, but even if they weren't, I would always prioritize my fitness because I know I have no other choice. It's not an option but to prioritize my fitness.
And it's not even just the physical component of it. Dude. Mentally right now, I feel we just put in a big effort, a lot of work. I feel light, I feel fresh, stress-free. I'm like, whatever else I have to take on the rest of the day, it's all good. I knocked out my workout. That's my base.
Yep. A buddy of mine, Mark Bell, says this term, put points on the scoreboard. Mm-hmm. And dude, when you put points on the scoreboard early in the day, think about what that does from a team perspective. If a football team goes and scores first drive, dude, just builds momentum, builds confidence. That's the same thing every day as a dad, right?
I agree. Points on the scoreboard. And also, as Mark Bell says, strength is never a weakness, weakness is never strength. Boom.